All right, welcome everybody. Tonight is the 15th of November, Dallas Personal Robotics Group, Builders Night Online, virtual. We're going to do the usual, what we do, raise our generic robot topics and questions, go around the table, see what we have going on in the club with the club members. Just as a reminder for anyone who might be watching this video, not aware, meetings are free to attend. You're welcome to join anytime. We do have dues for local members, regulars, but they're not required. Just welcome to join in. We did have on November 12th, just this Saturday, a couple days ago, we had Robo Columbus, our annual outdoor competition. And there is a video of the various runs. We had 4 robots on Saturday, 3 rounds each approximately. And we had Pat join from the Great North. And anyhow, you can watch any or all of the runs in here to discover that Scott ruled, and then Ray came in a very close second. Only by time did Scott nab it this time. So that was our contest for the outdoor competition. And aside from that, we'll do our usual to go around the table. And for that, we have a relatively short queue ahead of time tonight because we're also busy with the contest on the weekend. So, Pat, if you want to lead us off with your question, we'll see where it goes. At some point, I have another meeting somewhere else I'm going to share a link to, and then we'll just go around the table ad hoc from there. So, Pat, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you very much to the participants on the weekend that helped me get a first-person view of a contest and how it was run. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to grab the phone and tour me around as the robots were making their run. It was very considerate of you guys, and I appreciated it. I got to see some of the hardships, things you don't really see all the time and hear about that you wouldn't be able to quite pick up on a video, and it was good to know. So that hopefully will help me prepare for next year, and who knows, maybe a live appearance next year.
So do you have horse apples in Canada?
So when you said horse apples, are you talking about dung?
No.
Oh, no.
I call them monkey balls, but
like road apples?
Monkey balls. Yeah, I don't know what tree that is that produces that fruit, but it's
That's
a
yellowish around.
Bodark.
Oh, Bodarks do that?
Yes.
Never knew that.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a
grapefruit sized green balls.
Or like maybe orange sized. Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen those before. I did see some stuff similar. I thought it was yellowish on the ground. And
yeah. So I guess in Pennsylvania they call them monkey balls.
Well, that's what we call them growing up. What can I say? And I'm not making it up because it's on the internet, so it has to be true, right?
Yeah, I saw that. I'll be damned.
Well, anyways, it was very informative to be able to see that firsthand, and I appreciate everybody's time that took me around with the phone to give me that view.
Hopefully, you weren't seeing mainly feed or grass. I don't know.
I was seeing all sorts of different things, and sometimes it was hard with a pixelated camera to see what was going on. As well, the Wi-Fi signal, I don't know if it was just Wi-Fi or cellular as well, but it would be cutting in and out. So it was hard at times to get all the details, but it was still very, very informative. I appreciate it very much. So I did have a question tonight, and I thought I'd pick your brains on Arduino and timers. So I'm using an Arduino Uno for my motor driver, controlling my H bridges. And typically, I've just gone through a timed loop looking at elapsed milliseconds and jumping into different routines doing that. So I decided that I'm going to tackle rewriting some of my motor driver code. And I've been looking to use timed interrupts. So I'm set up basically timer 2 to do a 10 millisecond timed interrupt. And so I'm doing one loop at every 10 milliseconds. And that's my PID loop for the motors, where I just look at my velocities and adjust accordingly, basically 100 times a second to readjust my motor. Then I also use that same interrupt, but with a counter. I'm looking at doing it every 5 times I interrupt. So the 5th time I interrupt, I would go process my communication back to the Raspberry Pi through serial port, and also read any data available. Has anyone had any problems doing this? So I'm looking at using timer 1 is used for my pulse width modulation on my H bridges, and that's on pins 9 and 10, I believe. So I didn't touch that one. Timer 0 is used by Millis and several other functions on the Arduino, so I didn't touch that one. But timer 2 isn't used except, I believe, for the tone library and some pulse width modulation pins that I won't be using. So I thought, okay, well, if I use timer 2 and set up a 10 millisecond interrupt, and then do basically a 5 count on the interrupts, and that's when I do my communication.
Pat, this is one of the advantages of the Mega. You know, the Mega has 6 timers. So that's one big advantage. Another thing you ought to look at is the Teensies. I used the Teensy this year, and I was just amazed at how much fun it was. And, you know, since every pin can be an interrupt, it really makes some things very easy, okay? And like, for example, I was running 3 ultrasonics on a 50 millisecond loop. And the reason that they were on 50 was because was my counter of 2. Otherwise my base loop was 25 milliseconds. And you know, the worst case for the ultrasonics, I want to say they time out at somewhere over 30 milliseconds, but I believe it's under 40. So you know, a 50 millisecond thing, you're guaranteed pretty much to get one every time you pull them. Well, you're not really pulling them. They're all doing interrupts, you know. Which if you come by within 50, you know, you measure it, and 50 milliseconds later you have an answer. So and you could cut that down to 40, but you might if you start using a lot of timers, you might consider going to the Mega. Especially, I mean, there's nothing really good about it. Uno is a great learning chip, okay, but it's pin, you know, you don't have enough pins, and you don't have enough timers, and you don't have enough
RAM,
and you don't have enough interrupts or external interrupts. You know, you can use the on AVR type chips, even though that's made by Microchip now. They have pin, you know, whole port. A whole port shares an interrupt, and you can have it so that any combination pins in that port will give you an interrupt. Then you have to do the decoding and find out, well, okay, that was pin 6 that just interrupted, or that was pin 4, or whatever it is. So I mean, that's not real hard to do, but with a Mega, you get 6 intrinsic, 6 or 8, 6 at least. And so, you know, you can run your encoders, which take 4. And it's compared to Uno, it's definitely worth it. And they also have now a Mega on a small square board, which you can buy if you're space limited. You know, if you can't put a Mega, because the Mega is kind of spread out. If you want to use, if you go out there, say to eBay I guess eBay, there's probably other places you can get it, but there's a small form Mega. And I don't know how easy it is to use because it is a small form Mega. And so there's pins everywhere, But one of the things I found really cool, and it's kind of hard to get them right now, was with the Teensy, those push-in pin boards that everybody loves to use? You know what I'm talking about?
Breadboards?
Yeah, they're like a breadboard. I guess that'd be one of those. What Ray's holding up. You can get from several sources, but one who makes a really nice one is Adafruit, which is a board that is the same pinout, but it's a nice printed board. And it turns out that you can put that Teensy on half of it and still have enough. In my case, I actually used the Teensy 3.2 and a Wixel on the same board, and they fit. And it was just great. I mean, I like that. And if you want to go cheaper, you can get a Teensy 4 when they come available. And right now they're not available. None of the Teensies are available except a few 4.1s, and they're long. But they would probably take that whole little half board. That's kind of like what Ray did. But anyway, I'm just saying is you might want to consider those. They can all be programmed in Arduino environment. So that's not an issue. Both the Mega and the Teensy. So anyway.
One of the things I was looking at is to try to maintain the 5-volt IO. Because the current feedback from my motors is essentially an analog value between 0 and 5 volts. I could put a resistor network and drop it down.
Yeah.
But if possible, it would be nice to just stay with not having to put any of the interfacing in there.
Well, if that's why I like the Teensy 3.2. His newest chip, the Teensy 4 and 4.1, the 4 has the same footprint as 3.2, but the 3.2, all the pins you have easy access to are 5-volt tolerant. Okay. But the Teensy 4 is strictly 3.2. You can't go. That was one of the changes that went from the 3.2 to 4, the chip they used. The 0.4, the 4 is, probably twice as fast. It's an M7 chip. So it's like, but probably don't, the other one is, I think the other one is an M4, the 3.2. And both of those are so much faster than a Mega or that it's unbelievable.
I was looking as well as at an ESP32.
That's another good option.
It's another fast chip, but it's 3.3 volt.
It's very easy to get a hold of one of those. You got to be careful. There's all sorts of variations on that that particular chip because some of them are single core, some of them are double core, some of them I think are even 4 cores, and they all have Wi-Fi, which is a good thing, but it also can if you use it. If you're not using Wi-Fi, it's kind of a why you want to use that chip, So, but you're probably going to want some form of reporting, some sort of data logging. It makes debugging and all that stuff so much easier. That's why I use the Wixel, but I just picked up a couple of those radios that Ray had shown last week or the week before. What are they called, Ray? That NF something.
Oh no, that wasn't me. That was not here tonight. John.
Oh, okay. Well, John. Okay.
Is that the 430 megahertz radios?
Well, I don't know if the ones in the United States are 430. Because
Maybe 9:15.
yeah, because the reason why the 430, or actually, I think they use 2.4 megahertz. To be quite,
Oh, you might be right. Yeah.
2.4 gigahertz, is it?
Okay, gigahertz, yeah.
Yeah, I think they use 2.4
Yeah,
gigahertz.
gigahertz.
And the reason for that is legally in the United States, 433, you only can send a max of, I think, 90 bits per 20 seconds or something weird like that. And so if you're going to get one in those of that type of radio, they usually come in 915 for the United States, and that band is you can send faster.
Yeah, both are available here in Canada as well.
Yeah, 433 was originally in the United States, was meant for things like, you got a thermometer out in the backyard, and it sends the the temperature once every 30 seconds. It's meant for that type of radio communication. It's not made for sending big messages legally. But a lot of people get 433s because they got it off of eBay and they're going to use it, but technically they're illegal.
They seem to be much at the 433. They seem to be much more available out there than the 915 or the 2.4 gig.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that that's partially because 433 band it's got different uses in China
Okay.
and probably other places.
Yeah, I knew that 433 was used on a lot of the thermostats and little weather stations for your home.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives me an idea, possibly at looking at maybe a mega, like you say, with the smaller footprint,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe just building a custom header for it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a link for it. Okay, what's this?
Pat, I was going to show. So what you described, Pat, that approach is very much exactly what I've used on the most three robots that I've done recently. So they all use Arduino Mega 2560. And I followed along from Dale Wheat, who's a member of the club, wrote this book, Arduino Internals. But found that like timer 1 is incompatible because it's used by delay in microseconds, as you said, or whatever. Yeah. And then on our club robot, timers 3 and 4 were used for the motor shield that we used. So all of my robots use timer 5 for the kind of main execution loop. And there's the way I do it, there's like this setup here. And then whenever the timer fires, the interrupt fires, all I do is I enter that ISR, I set this flag to true, and I get out of the ISR. And then what that lets me do is that the main code of the main Arduino loop is really simple. It's if it's active. So like if this flag is active, then go ahead and run that task. And I run it every 20 milliseconds and then set the one to false. So I found that to be very effective. And it only requires like this extra little code here to set it up to that 20 millisecond period.
Okay.
And then what happens is that 20 millisecond function. That's where pretty much everything runs from. That's my main loop basically. So, and I do a time slice. So I divide time into 10 different sequential 20 millisecond intervals. And that lets me, tasks that have to run every 20 milliseconds, like sampling the IMU and writing the motors, they go in every case statement. But then other things that might take a lot of time, so I can't do them all every time, I'll just pick one of these time slices and say, okay, on every 4th out of 10, I'll fetch open, I'll check the serial ports for camera data. And maybe on the case 9 too. So then that's basically, I found that to be very effective, by the way. So then it's easy to measure the your time budget when you do it this way. So I use an oscilloscope and I just when I enter one of these case statements, I'll set the pin high, and when I exit, I set it low, and then I can pretty much tell, am I running out of processing time?
That's a
If
good
any-
idea.
If any of those periods get to be more than or close to 20 milliseconds.
That's where the mega pins come in handy over the Uno, because
Absolutely.
you've got extra pins you can set for troubleshooting.
Yeah, can do all kinds of. I mean, there's more pins than you can use, and yeah. So I do like those NeoPixels, which are really handy for diagnosis. They can take a lot of time to update if you have as many as I do. So I I only update the NeoPixel. I only update those strips every so often, and then that leaves plenty of other times to fetch cameras and other things that are time consuming, or check the PS2 controller. Anyhow, I just want to reinforce your idea is that yes, it can work pretty well.
Yeah. So the other problem I was getting is pin count, but as well as memory.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to start running out of memory on an Uno.
An Uno.
Pat, when you described your idea, it sounded to me like you were saying the ISR would enter into the code that would do whatever it was to control the motors. And I just want to make sure that you were distinguishing between that, which is a problematic approach because it's generally not recommended to execute much code at interrupt level versus what Carl just showed, where you're actually running it at base level, and the interrupt level is just a trigger for the base.
Absolutely. So the interrupt level sets a flag and increments a counter, and
Cool.
that's all it does.
Cool.
So that I have my 10 millisecond loop and my counter for my 50 millisecond loop.
Well, be careful about counters though, because if they're anything more than a byte, what can happen is the base loop can be reading, and it can have read like 1 byte out of a multi-byte variable, and then the interrupt fires and updates the counter, and suddenly the whole word is changed, and now the ISR exits and the base loop carries on reading, but now the byte is the word is inconsistent. Its bytes no longer mean what they did when the base loop started. You can get some very obscure bugs that way.
Yeah, and I want to say that, and I was going to kind of build on what Paul said. Shouldn't do the counter in there. There's no need to do the counter in the interrupt. What you do is, how I do something like Carl does, and what mine doesn't use a case statement. I could, but I didn't. And so like my 50 so I told you my base time is 25 milliseconds. All right. So when every 25 milliseconds comes on, it fires, and when it fires, the if statement is selected, and it increments the counter there. Okay. Or in the case of the 25, it sets the counter back to 0. So, but it sets the one that's going to fire at 50 to 1. So the next time it comes through, it sets that counter to 2. But now if it gets down to the 50, it says, oh, if the counter is greater than 2 here, then fire that loop and reset the loop, that counter back to 0. Okay, so in that case, I'm using 2 counters, one for the 25 millisecond and one for the 50 millisecond. And I'm actually using a third counter for 200 milliseconds. So, so you don't have to put the counter in. It should just simply be, I'm whatever I am. I've gone high or whatever, a 1.
Set a flag.
Yeah.
Okay, that's some good advice. I'm going to, it's easy enough to pull my counter out of there. I'll have to rethink my encoders because I do a pin change interrupt routine for my encoders. And it does involve a little wee bit. It's probably 2 or 3 milliseconds inside each interrupt routine, processing a little bit of code.
That's a
Okay,
lot.
now there, I'm going to tell you, screw all of that. Go out and go to the teensy, and I think his name is, I think he calls it, it's either I think it's PC Junior or something. I'll look it up. But anyway, he has an encoder library, and if you're going to be using Arduino chips, you know, a Mega or a Uno or any of that, use his library, and you don't have to worry about encoders ever again. It's taken care of. So it's that's what I would highly recommend, and it's very efficient code, and the number of ticks that it can handle in an interval is very, very high. And so, like I say, don't even bother with encoder code anymore. Just go use his library. I'll go put a link in, and I'll go look it up.
I'll take a look at it. So one of the things I am doing inside my encoder interrupt routine was to calculate a velocity.
There's no need to do that. You want to, I mean,
So I can get it
that can be done outside.
Okay.
Now, what you need to do, you do, and you don't even have to worry about the autonomy key, which was what Paul was talking about.
Atomicity.
Thank you. That Paul was talking about, because his library handles it. Okay, because obviously you could get a case where you have more than 255 ticks in a period, but that's all taken care of in that. And if you're going to have one that's more in Arduino's, since it's an 8-bit processor, it's 8-bit. If you're going to be passing anything bigger than 8 bits, then you've got to use the special techniques of creating a local variable, turning off the interrupts, creating a local variable, turning the interrupts back on to handle that. Or exactly what Paul said, you're going to end up with weird and strange glitches every once in a while.
Yeah, the central point here is protecting the base level code from interrupts that may change data that the base level is using. And if you look on Arduino examples, find that they disable global interrupts during critical sections in the base code, so that the interrupt can't hit while the base code is manipulating shared data. But basically, the more you do that, the more difficult it becomes to make sure you've got every shared variable protected.
Yeah, so that was one of my concerns.
And that's why going to a 32-bit processor kind of makes it a little bit easier, because it moves 32 bits in one clock cycle. All right. So you don't have to worry about this as long as you keep it at the 32-bit 32 bits. I mean, it's just something to consider from stepping up from an Arduino to another processor.
Except that if your interrupt code of a base code shares 2 variables and you try and manipulate both of them, then you're right back at square one.
Well,
it just goes back to the less you do at interrupt level, the better.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying the size of what limits you to having a problem with 8 bits is that the Arduino is an 8-bit processor. The Teensy is an ARM processor, so it has 32-bit single instruction.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little more room when you're dealing with volatile variables.
So
Anyway.
that was one of my concerns as well, like you say, that the manipulation of data inside the routines, but as well, you're looking at a quadrature encoder with pin change interrupt. So you're interrupting the rise and fall of 2 pins.
Well, that's why I'm trying to say, if you do it with a mega, you take four of the external. I think they're called external. Are they called external or internal?
External interrupts.
External. I think they're external interrupts. You take 4 of the 6 that you have available. See, the best you can do with an Uno is you can have both. Well, you can use the change pin. You can use that, but that's, like I say, use this guy's. I'll put a link in here. Use his library. Don't worry about it anymore. And don't use a Uno. Use a Mega. All right.
Okay, I'll take a look at what I can change. I'm looking at rewriting it. So rewriting it, changing the processor doesn't matter anyway.
You can, if you go to Attendees, it's all Arduino. Everything you can do in an Arduino plus some stuff.
Except you can't get them.
Huh?
Except you can't get a Teensy.
Oh, that's probably true. Yeah, you were probably right there.
So, but I
you can't
a 6044 mega chip.
Yeah.
Out of China somewhere.
Yeah. I put a link in there for what the board looks like. If you look it up, you'll see there's a gazillion vendors. There might even be a vendor in the United States. I don't know. I didn't look. I just looked at the one that was, looked like it was the board I was talking about. All right.
Okay. And have you had any problems using the Chinese CH3040Gs?
CH34.
Which is opposed to the other driver they use, the USB driver chip. I've never had an issue with it on Linux anyway.
Oh, are you talking about the CH340?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I've never had a problem with it.
Okay.
Never.
I see all sorts of warnings about them everywhere, and this isn't enough authentic.
No, I don't buy that. I've used them so many times now that there's no problem with them. I mean, you just have to make sure that your machine has the driver on it. Your PC,
Yeah. I run Linux. It has a driver.
Yeah, I've done it. I think I've even run it off of a Raspberry Pi. So I mean, it's not. They're so ubiquitous now that if you couldn't do it, you'd lose customers.
Right, yeah, I think several years ago there was an issue, but not anymore. I don't think. Kind of like you said, if you have the driver for it, shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm seeing, there's all sorts of listings for these guys. I'm just quickly on Amazon because they're available quicker. And there's all sorts of listings there as well for that chip.
Yeah, what I was kind of wondering, has Arduino, the IDE, has it kept or been consistent with, like what's a long, what's a float, what's a double? Because I know the doubles, there really weren't doubles. It was the same as a float in the number of bits that it used to represent, a floating point number. I don't know, that kind of stuff.
On the tip,
because I was wondering about it because I'm using an ESP32 and was wondering how many bytes are in an int versus a long int, and how that compared with the 8-bit AVR chips. And the Arduino environment makes no guarantees about the number of bytes in those ints or floats or doubles.
Yeah, but I think it's real easy to check. You can just, in an Arduino program, you can just add this serial.println and then put your variable that you want to check, comma B, and what that'll do is put it out in binary, and you can just count them.
There's
We
also a
use the
size of function.
use the size of function in the
Yeah.
C.
Yeah, there's a size. Oh, yeah, there is. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that you can use. You just put the variable in it, and it'll tell you the number of bytes.
Yeah, and if memory serves, I found that the 8-bit AVRs, a double and a float were both 4 bytes, but on ESP32, I believe a double was 8 bytes and a float was 4 in the Arduino environment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It depends on the architecture of the chip, though. If it's 32-bit or 16 or 8.
Yeah, the ESP32s are 32 bits. So.
And you can also use like int 32 or int 8 if you want to specify that. I think it's int 2 underscore t.
Yeah. Yeah, and I strongly recommend that because you know exactly what you got.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I've got all sorts of good info to carry on my search and hunt.
Good segue for discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, if they could only improve upon the Mega, make it a 32-bit, keep the 4 serial ports and the 6 external interrupts and all that stuff.
And 5-volt I/O.
Yeah, boatload of I/O. Yeah. So.
All right. So who wants to jump in next? Any next topic? Or I'll just be
I could if it's going to be pretty short.
all right. What you got?
I was playing around with the. Let's see, what is this? The VL53L5CX. It's the SparkFun, 8x8 array of distance sensors, and thought I could mount it on the Palulu base, and it was fairly simple to mount and looked kind of neat, but it's pretty much vertical, and I need it to be slanted back a little bit because it's got like a 60-degree field of view, horizontally, I think, and vertically, and it's hitting the floor. It needs to be slanted back a little bit, but I wanted to see if how good it could be as far as a device to navigate with, like for 6-can or can soccer. But so that's got to be, put on another mount so I can tilt it back just a little bit, because it gets a reflection off the off the floor otherwise. The other thing that I've been wanting to do, and it was a suggestion from one of the meetings from the Seattle Robotics Society group. I don't know how long it's been now, 3 years maybe. I was playing around with a line laser, and I think an OpenMV H7, and turning on the line laser to and looking at it kind of with the camera, the laser line coming out horizontally or parallel with the floor, with the camera angle looking down. So if it, if the laser hit anything, it would give me basically a depth range or depth perception. And one of the things that he suggested was to do frame differencing. And I had used a filter, there's a long pass filter for infrared, because it was an infrared laser, so that I would only see pretty much the laser in the field of view of the camera. And he was suggesting, don't do that. Just turn the laser on, take a snapshot, turn the laser off, take another snapshot, and do frame differencing between the two. And that should just highlight the laser, because that's really the only difference in the two pictures or two frames. And I thought that might be a cheap way to, an easy way, fewer parts. I don't have to have a filter switch or anything, or that specific filter to be able to do that. So, but haven't done it yet. So, but anyway, I still haven't gotten the dirt out of the wheels of the outdoor platform.
Have you developed any perception of how narrow the spots in that 8x8 time of flight sensor are?
Not yet. I think there's, it's like 60 degrees and there's 8 of them. So
Yeah, I just wondered if you'd gotten an intuitive feel for how big those spots are at some sort of moderate distance that's of interest.
yeah, I was, the Can Soccer is the arena or whatever, the walls of the playing field are like 7 feet by 10 feet. So I was thinking if I could go at least 10 feet, and it's supposed to do 4 meters, which is over 10 feet. It should still give me distance readings from, pretty much one corner of the course to the other corner of the course. But I'm assuming, what is it? If it was 64 degrees, that would be 8 degrees for each dot.
Yeah,
but
it's okay. I just wondered if you'd gotten any practical sort of hands-on feel for it, because we can divide out the number of degrees and compute its spot thickness, but reality is it's not probably going to be exactly that size, I guess, or maybe it is.
Yeah, it could be smaller. Yeah,
maybe it is. I don't know.
Ray, is that laser based, or what's the emitter on it?
I think it is laser on that one. And that's, basically I think it's a fair amount of code to run that thing. It's like, they said it wouldn't fit in, like any of the smaller, the Unos or the 32U4s. I don't even know if it'll fit in a Mega. I think they said it was, well, no, it probably fits in a Mega. I think they said it was like 90K of code to run this thing. So, and that I'm using a native fruit cutie pie, and that's got more than enough, memory to run it. But I mounted it at 45 degrees, like as was suggested. So it's, that's the front of the robot, and it's staring off at 45, or close to it, but a little too low. I just have to cant it back a little bit.
What did you say the part number is?
It is a VL53 L5CX, and that's Spark Funds. Spark.
I put that in the chat earlier.
Oh,
okay.
Somewhere.
Anyway, I was thinking, you could use like the 8 readings in one line, and from those 8 readings what your angle is to the wall. So that's kind of handy. It is a little slow. I think the update rate for 64 readings is like a second. So I don't know if that's going to be a limitation or not, but second's a long time. So, but yeah, just kind of playing around with that. Oh, and I'm going to Harbor Freight and buying a bunch of plastic boxes with a bunch of slits and, for storage, because this office is a disaster. There's junk everywhere.
Yeah.
You need Michael's space station appearance to get going back in there somewhere.
What's that?
You need to look at Michael Iverson's inspiration there. Yeah, it's got.
Oh yeah, yeah. It looks very organized.
Very organized, very clean, and stuff carefully placed here and there, just like you'd expect in a space limited orbital platform
With no gravity. Yeah.
What he doesn't tell you is that it's actually a picture background.
And it's hiding a disaster back there.
You remember? Did y'all notice that I wasn't in my space shuttle for a while?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter moved back in, so I got kicked out of the house. So
Oh no.
I'm back in my space shuttle.
How's it handling the cold? How's it handling the cold, Mike?
Oh, that's all insulation back there.
Yeah, I see that, but I was wondering.
Space heaters,
Okay.
and it works
Of course.
really good.
What else would it be?
Yeah.
It's space
Yeah.
heaters.
Space heaters, yeah.
It's the final frontier he's eating.
Oh man.
Okay.
Anyway, that's all I had.
All right. I have something here, and you have something, Doug?
Just a couple of things. I threw a few links in the chat because of what people were talking about. One is Adafruit's new Neo Pixel driver. Their very best friends forever, they call it, which might be something that Carl is interested in. And then also just in general, the Autocam TOF depth camera has happened. I haven't got mine in house yet, but I've been billed, so I'm assuming it'll be in the mail here. So
I got the same thing. I was billed for it.
yeah,
Yeah, me
so-
too.
Okay, so that's another new toy to.
Yeah,
It's
me
gonna be
too.
fun to play. So that was the two things that I wanted to do. And I'm going to come and put up a link to a video to address what Michael just said about space heaters.
Cool.
But we'll be there if I can find it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that NeoPixel thing. Let's see. Yeah, I'll jump in. I have just one thing to share, and that is as I was posting Builders Night Virtual for the next couple months, I noticed Computer Visionaries has a demo day at this new AI center. So basically, that's all he said about it. Vision Demo Day for IoT robotics. It's hosted by Spacey, so that's the company that does computer vision based retail engagement systems for stores and things. So they have cameras and projectors. They can tell when you walk up to a shoe rack and you pick up the shoe objects. You look at these objects, they can tell, or things on the shelf, they can tell how you're interacting with that stuff. And Clay is working there too. Clay Timmons from the club and Ron Dagdag. So anyhow, this is coming up on November 30th. And this site, it's new to me. I guess Spacey's moved part of their stuff over there, but this looks like a co-working facility focused on AI and computer vision. And okay, everybody has to have disruptive technology, but it's like
Disruptive technology.
Well, yeah, it's like you had to be crypto, right? So like the juice companies were making the crypto juice drinks, and they would go through the roof because they had the word crypto in them. So if you're not making something that's going to disrupt, then the venture capitalists and the angels don't want to put money in. So there's actually a conference called Disrupt, and it's to attract companies that want to shake things up, right?
Oh, okay.
Although when I think back to the photography course I took at one time, it sometimes strikes me as for photographs, the idea was that if you can't make the composition better, just zoom in and make whatever it is you're looking at big. I mean, so like technology, right? If you can't make it better, just make it different so it's disruptive.
It's disruptive. Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my soapbox. But anyhow,
It's not a bug, it's an undocumented feature.
see, you want a new idea? Read a book that's been around for a bit. That's undocumented features, and yeah. I live by that.
What again? What is this event that you were talking about again?
It's just a meetup. I think it's an open house, and I expect that we'll find a handful of companies, at least one, maybe two or three. I don't know. A handful of companies with showing off what they do at this grand, fancy new co-working facility. So I don't know what we'll find there, but the guy that runs Spacey, that Skip Howard, he's a pretty sharp guy, and he's got a nice little company, and they do cool stuff. And he's hosted some good meetups before at his own business location. But I mean, basically, he started his company, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and he's been taking off ever since. So he's got really good revenue, a bunch of employees. So it's just a good place to hang out and see what's going on if you're curious. And I think there'll be some computer vision, AI related things there. But that's all. I mean, I wanted to share something since I looked at the code for my robot from Saturday and came to the conclusion that it stopped early because it must have seen a reflection of the orange somewhere. I don't know, but oh well. That's all I got.
Oh, I was saying, I don't know if you want to look at it or not. It's pretty simple. Using the OpenMV H7, right, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could show you what I did, and you can plagiarize it all you want if you like. So
Sure.
Copy it, use it. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I can share what I got. What I got is what Raj wrote, and then I mucked with it some.
Oh, okay. You want to see it now? It's pretty simple.
I think what happened, my only guess is that that's the first time I've seen it false trigger like that. And, you know, the slope was coming down like this, and then it kind of flattened out. And the slope was kind of nice and green. And then at the bottom, the grass got brown. And then the angle of the sun was coming up and changing as we went through the runs. So all I can figure is the robot came down, either the grass itself or the cone. So the way we have that routine structured in that robot is that it looks for orange blobs of a certain aspect ratio. So it wants them to be taller than they are wide. And so it looks for blobs of a certain aspect ratio. And if it finds those, then the robot looks for one that's at least so many pixels wide.
Could it have reflected off that pond, or is that too far away?
I figured
the sun was in the wrong direction.
Yeah, the pond was beyond the cone, right? So I was thinking if maybe, and I noticed it was so darn bright that at some point the camera was washing out, even though it had like level shifted and white balanced at the start of the run. Maybe the exposure change was enough by the time it got down to the bottom that the grass kind of washed out and looked orange and said, oh yeah, it's wider than it is tall. So it's 370 pixels at least. It's a cone. Time to go back.
You're really grasping at straws there, guys. It's I was there in my orange bell bottoms with an invisibility cloak, so that's why y'all didn't see me. But I flashed that robot real fast.
Mr. Mercury. Well, I don't know what else to think because I was looking for ways that like because on that robot basically it follows the compass, which the B&O 055, the magnetic compass in fusion mode, I think it drifts. I don't understand that, but I think it drifts over time. So, but aside from that, it follows the compass until it sees the cone, and then it follows the cone. And if the cone goes away, then it follows the compass again. And I was wondering if maybe, because most of the time when I check it out at the house here, every time, I've always started it in scene of the cone, so it hasn't really. I haven't really examined that transition from IMU mode to cone vision mode. So I was thinking that maybe it false triggered in that transition, but there's no way that could have happened the way that the code was written. And the other thing I was thinking is that maybe there's a bit flip somewhere. I mean, but because there is a crazy serial port from the OpenMV to the Mega. So, but I figured I discounted that because why would a bit flip happen at very much the same point after running for 45 seconds when it gets within 20 feet of the cone? Why would the bit flip then? So the only thing left I could figure is that it false triggered on the cone detector, and I got to figure out how to recreate it because it just doesn't make sense to me as to why that happened. Why it backed up prematurely.
Can I show you what I did?
Yeah.
Okay. Screen. Beep, beep.
Also, kind of looks like Jack is actually going to do something for us.
You hit the compile button? Excellent. He's quiet. Oh, he's behind the. He's going to make us some coffee.
He's on the way.
Don't have anything new to show. I was able to get it to do what I showed you guys before, though. But aside from that, nothing new.
So repeatability.
Yes, that I am very happy for.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The main thing that I did is I created a bunch of thresholds, and it goes from very, low level light to very strong light, like sunlight. And let's see, it was quarter VGA was the resolution, auto gain, auto white balance off. And this is pretty much the example they give you for blob detection with a few modifications. So let's see. Okay, if it got one, is it actually found a blob, and if it found one, then and actually I took the centroid X, the blob.cx, divided it by 2, so I could just send 1 byte, and then I multiply it by 2 on the after it's received. And yeah, I lose a resolution of 1 bit, but doesn't matter that much. It was simpler to do. And then I write the character to the UART. If I don't find a blob, it starts to increment through those thresholds, the thresholds up here. And you can have, a wider range of thresholds than that. It's not really limited, for different lighting conditions. So that was pretty much it. Just these, thresholds that cover different lighting conditions. Kept the pixel threshold small, only 200. That's not a lot. But it seemed to, just cycle through them pretty quickly if it couldn't find, a threshold that was working or didn't work, or, didn't fit the lighting of the scene. So,
Ray, is this after you got to your GPS destination?
Yeah, it doesn't look at the serial port until I stopped it at a meter before the actual point. So it keeps on going until the meters to go distance, and that's from I'm blanking on his name. Can't think of his name now.
Chris?
Anyway, yeah, it goes to like a meter of the actual waypoint
That's not
and
bad.
stops, and then it starts looking. David Anderson stuff.
Oh, okay.
That's one of his variables is meters to go. But
Cool.
anyway, and all this other stuff has to do with drawing, the things on the image to show you that it actually found
Ow.
the blob and
Okay, there
that
we
kind of
go.
stuff.
Hey Ray,
Right.
do you ever report what particular threshold worked?
In the serial port here, yeah, I print right here threshold index,
Yeah.
and that's but I don't send that to the ESP32. It's just there's a serial port window here that you can create, and it dumps it in that, and so when I'm hooked up to it, I can see it. Otherwise, I don't see it.
No, I'm just curious. Have you seen it? Did you see it widen? Did it work better? I guess is what I'm getting at. Did you see?
Yeah, it worked really well. I didn't. I actually did, all this stuff at home here, and didn't have to change it or mess with it at all for the contest.
That's cool. I like it.
I just left it that way.
You.
And it's nice because it's independent, and it's pretty much asynchronous of whatever else is going on in the robot platform. It just I think I was getting like frame rates when I was hooked up to my laptop of at least 20 hertz, which is my loops, the 20 hertz loop anyway for motor updates, and that was usually it goes faster when you disconnect the serial port from.
Yeah, get rid of you probably don't do the image when you're not. Are you imaging?
Yeah.
That saves some time.
Yep. So it works out pretty good.
So it looks like you've got blob.elongation greater than 0.5. So I guess that's an aspect ratio test, right? Line 42.
Yeah. Yep. And that it kind of shows you, kind of like it says there, if it's if your blob is kind of circular or square, it can have a hard time with that. But if it's rectangular, usually it works pretty good. I didn't really use that was in there. I could take it out. But as far as like an aspect ratio, yeah, you could say I only want blobs that have this aspect ratio or elongation.
Yeah, we just computed it. I mean, what I've got is basically what you've got, just with different thresholds. So.
Oh, okay.
Yours cycles through the thresholds. I have a fixed threshold one.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. You when you turn on when you reset mine in the ambient condition, it does its levels and white balance, and then it's fixed for the rest of the run.
Yep.
So it locks that threshold in, and that's what I'm thinking. I mean, because I did that looking down on that long run, but then at the bottom it went from like more greenish grass to brown, flatten out. So
yep,
with blue behind it, who knows? It was moving too fast to really couldn't see what it was seeing.
Yeah, no, didn't look like you had anything on your lens. I had the circular, not a circular, linear polarizer.
Oh, okay.
On it to knock down the light a little bit, because it was in really bright sunlight. It looked a little washed out. So I just, and that was fixed once I adjusted it. I didn't move it.
Yeah, I didn't try that either. Cool.
Carl, was your white balance fixed and was your aperture fixed?
I'm pretty sure it was a fixed aperture, and the white balance auto adjusted at boot up and then fixed. So, and I didn't pay close attention to how well the washout or the levels was handling the range of dynamics from one orientation to another. So, but to me, that's what the symptoms pointed at, was some kind of failure in the camera cone detection system caused it to trigger prematurely.
And did I watch the video correctly? I kind of skipped through it, but Doug, it kind of looked like you never got a chance to test all of that work that you put into that
Yeah,
cone detector, right?
Well, I did. The cone detector wasn't a problem. I think it would have worked fine. My biggest problem was
leaving home.
Yeah.
Leaving home. Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
it worked at home.
Well, it did work at home, and that's frustrating. Well, I think what happened, and I'm going to blame it on this anyway. I had to change my network because I was using VNC to start the program. Okay. And so it turned out, because of the way I laid out the board, I accidentally blocked the port for the HDMI on the Raspberry Pi. So I had to take the whole front mass out, and when you did that, some of the wires came out, and the whole thing kind of went wacky. Even broke a wire, and I had to give up and solder it. But the that's the only thing I can think, because like I said, at home I was driving to a cone without any problem. So, well, next year, like I say, it gives me a chance to think about it. I'm still thinking about it. Last night, I had handled the after cone touch with pretty much with ballistic movements, or otherwise they were blocking. And I had a non-blocking routine, but it had some problems, because you can't guarantee that you're still getting the thing that was triggering it. So otherwise, something might come. If you get it, let's say it in a non-blocking routine, every time it comes around, every 25 or 50 milliseconds, whatever triggered the non-blocking activity has to trigger again, so that you can count it. And I figured a way around that. When I woke up in the morning, it was like, why didn't I do it that way? So I'm still thinking about this. It's kind of interesting, because usually when I finish with this stuff, and it's all gone. So I don't know. My plans are to get rid of this platform and go to a differential, just because it makes the turning so much easier. And that's something that I plan to do. I might keep this guy, because I've already got so much time and investment in it, and just finish it out again, just to say, yeah, it did work. But that's not what I'm going to think be my primary robot next year.
Put it in the Hall of Fame of Fame display.
Well, no,
not flame,
it gives me, by not changing that base, by letting it develop, that means I get to buy a bunch of new crap. So I mean, so we'll see how it goes.
Right.
Because I learned an awful lot this time, and really felt like my code base had matured a lot. So it wasn't a waste. It was just kind of a sad day.
You were reaching for the stars there. It was very complex.
Yeah. Well, if the cone had been in the next neighbor's yard, I think I'd have had it. Oh well. So.
Well, they were your cones, weren't they?
Oh no, two of there's only one cone that's mine. Two of them
Oh,
are the
okay.
clubs. Two of them are the
Okay.
clubs. So, and in actuality, Ray, I think we put the newest cone as the challenge cone because or maybe it was home cone. No, I think it was home cone because we wanted people to. There is a slight color difference between it and the others because it's not as worn as the club cones. They've apparently been out in the sun somewhere in their past, and so who knows? Maybe originally they got picked up somewhere. Anyway,
Home Depot.
but the new one was mine is actually from Home Depot, but I don't think that type of cone is carried anymore. I don't know if it is or not.
I was going
But,
to say you could have motorized it, and just wheeled one up there and say, "Hey, it found the cone. There it is."
Yeah. No, but I had all that work for anybody who's interested in it. I know you all have Oak D lights. I mean, if you just want to try it, it will work on other cones. Just any cone you have. I mean, I use little soccer cones to practice in house. Outside, I use the real cones, but in house, I use the plastic soccer cones, and it's really fun to use the Oak D light.
I think I took the other end, approach. It's I wasn't even using a camera. I was using a color sensor, and then realized that wasn't going to work. And
Yeah.
So,
What had y'all used in the past when y'all did this cone?
Usually a blob detector.
yeah, Pixie
Blob
cam.
detector.
So.
Yeah, different. Ray's using another type, but it's still a blob detector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I got a question for y'all on that. When y'all come up to the tree, the pine tree, how would you how would you try to avoid it, see that and avoid it next time? What would you use?
I've got
Remember
a
the tree that was right in the way of the second cone?
Mm-hmm.
The mud pit for Ray.
Yeah, it was a little muddy there.
But I mean, if we come up with that situation again, say, how would
You will.
go? Would those ultrasonics see that tree that you had rigged up, Doug?
I
They have a
think
very
that
narrow,
yeah. I would say that that the ultrasonics would pick it up when you got really close. The problem with that is the branches are kind of sparse. When they the way they kind of like on that bush. If you looked at it, I mean, when Ray got the deepest into it, he got too deep and he got stuck. You know, so if he could have detected it, even a foot before he got that deep, he probably could have gone around it.
those
Yeah,
I was
longer
amazed.
distance Polaroid sensors, ultrasonics,
Yeah,
with their narrow cone, they'll pick up something like that. They'll even pick up chain link fence.
yeah, those are really good, but
But the
nobody.
SR04s or whatever they're called, those
Yeah.
won't pick up that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to do some more experiments with the radar detector. One of the things, it detects people really well, because we're, I don't know, mostly water. So I'm hoping a well hydrated tree may show up as something similar. It's like, oh, human.
So do they detect some human that's not moving? That's one of my questions.
yes,
I believe they're only motion detection.
no, they'll detect them even if they're still.
Stationary, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
PIR sensor will detect a still human,
Yeah, they will too.
but that's
But the
based
radar,
on
those radar ones will do it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to. I have well, we don't live that far apart, so the trees that we have are pretty similar. So I'll just go to the thicket in my backyard and do some radar detector, testing on it to see what it can see. It's impenetrable though. There's like, I don't know, vines that'll grow up into the trees, 40 feet high, and they're loaded with prickers and every kind of poison. There's poison sumac, poison oak, poison ivy,
The
I'm hoping
stereo
that-
cameras will pick it up also.
Yeah, that's one of my goals for next year is to go ahead and actually use the depth information from the Oak D-Light. This year I didn't try to do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was there. And like I say, who knows, maybe this AudiCam
Yeah, I'm hoping that
sensor
has
are going to
some,
be, see how
promise
that
to it.
works. That
Yeah.
might be good too, but I won't know until I get one in hand.
without the power requirements of an Oak D-Light and a Raspberry Pi, and
Yeah.
Well, that time of flight RGCam one isn't a lightweight camera either. It's up to 2 amps.
God, is it that much?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I did. I was doing some reading on it, and they recommend if you're
Right there.
powering it up to make sure your power supply, if it's the same as the Raspberry Pi, that it's at least a 4 amp.
Whew. Man.
So they're. I'm looking at that, and I'm saying, well, maybe I should be powering it up separately from the Raspberry Pi because there is the separate power cable for it.
Is it anything more than a camera, or I thought it was maybe some special hardware, but that seems like a lot for.
I think it runs on heat.
Yeah.
There's a little heater
It
that
generates itself, you mean?
warm
The
up.
steam engine.
There you go.
Why would a camera need 2 amps? I'm not sure, but
Yeah, that's a lot of current.
I will say something. Here's a data point that people might be interested in. I was using those little Fly Sky battery eliminator units, which are rated at 2 and I think a max of 3. And I was running my Pi and my AudioCam off of one of those, and I never had any problem with it. It ran fine. So that's kind of cool. Just a little data point.
So did it ever feel hot to the touch, or?
I noticed that having it run in my room here for long periods of time, I saw that it would get up, the actual Pi 4 would get up into the 60s. I don't think that's really too bad. I think they can go up to 70 before they really start to throttle
back, maybe.
Yeah. So it no, and when I say 60, like 60, 61, that was kind of where it was. So it didn't seem to be a problem. It would be nice if I could use the Pi for more stuff. Okay. Because right now, other than I'm using the Pi to really just run a Python script to transfer the Oak D-Light data to it. And why you do that is because the Oak D-Light is USB 2. I'm sure you could get or USB 3. I don't know what it is. But what I'm saying is that you could probably use some of the ARM chips that have USB on them. You could probably use that, but it'd probably be more work. Pi was simple, you just write a Python script and let it roll. So and also it's easier. It works real well with RoboFlow to bring down the model, and you don't have to worry about it. I'm hoping to talk to John a little bit in the next year and see about getting some collaboration on some of Python stuff to let's see if I can get it a little better. But like I say, here's what I guess, my first thought would be to use the when you do your main camera, and you pick up a cone, you get a box around the cone. Well, if you made that a region of interest, then you should be able to use the depth camera to just tell you how far that cone is, instead of trying to read the whole frame, which is kind of confusing. If you just limit it to, okay, I see a cone, that's my region of interest, and tell me how far that is. And then you could also probably, if you really got, when you were in the, I'm going to the cone, but I'm not near the cone, you might be able to use, analyze, take the whole pile of data and just tell me the biggest blob, or a blob of a certain size. Which one, is there anything close, what's the closest of that? Probably, or maybe take a region of interest that's a rectangle across the field of view, and tell me what the nearest thing in that is, as to try to use the depth information in a some, instead of getting a whole picture of depth information, which really doesn't mean, not very useful to tell the robot anything. So I'm gonna mess with that, see what I can do. I'm really, I'll tell you this, the OD Lite is a really nice piece of hardware. It really is. I mean, for something that's $150, it's really a nice piece of hardware.
Kind of looked like Jack was going to show us something.
Yeah, I know. He's disappeared.
We were hoping.
Oh, there he is. He popped up.
Don't look at the man behind the curtains.
Muted, Jack.
You're muted.
Right now, I'm just soldering, so I don't have anything to show yet.
Ah,
Maybe next week.
Okay, cool.
so the smoke is intended, what we see, Swifty.
Yeah.
I can show what my team was doing while y'all were.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
traipsing about the field.
Sure.
How'd they do first? Did they do good?
This was their first competition. They
Okay.
they scored 0 in their first match.
Ooh, that's not good.
Well, it's actually great because their rate of improvement is infinite from that point on.
That's the way I feel, Kareem. That's the way I feel. You got me. But what really upsets me the most is that this particular year's Robo Columbus Cup was really pretty. I think. Oh, and Ray, you did say you wanted the small cup.
Yeah.
Okay, small cup. Got it.
What's the espresso version?
It's like a little teeny cup.
So is the video queued up for y'all?
Yeah.
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 Which one? What's your team number? Is this you in the front?
6832 right here.
Okay, got it. Got it.
So it starts out with autonomous, and you see these stacks of cones right here. There's one over here. There's another one here. So depending on your alliance color, you either have blue cones or red cones. On this particular cone, there is an optional, they call it a signal sleeve. And we designed ours as April tags. It's a kind of fiducial that's used a lot in college robotics. So it's like a simplified QR code. It's just a series of numbers. So it's basically, it can be read at a distance a little bit better. So there's a webcam on the robot right about here, looking in that direction.
Kareem, let me interrupt.
Yeah.
Is that provided by you, or is that provided by part of the contest?
The cone is provided as part of the cones are provided as part of the contest. They have a default pattern on them that
Okay.
uh, and they ship some code that will detect that particular pattern.
Oh, I got you.
Right, but if you, I don't know if you can see on those far ones, but they don't have their custom sleeve. They have just the standard pattern. So if you can detect that, and there's already a pipeline that will detect that, then you get like 10 points if you can detect the right detect the right signal. Basically, there's 3 different ways this cone can be oriented, and based on which way it's positioned, your robot has to either end up in this somewhere in this spot, or in this spot, or on these 2 pads.
Okay, I'm still a little confused. Did you have like a custom cone that you put over the stock cone?
Yeah, we put a paper sleeve over the cone that obscures the standard pattern, and it's your own pattern, and you're basically, your points are doubled if you can figure out how to do your own pattern.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah. So it went from 10 points to 20 points if you can not only read it, but then carry out the action that's required. In this match, it was they basically do a random roll of the dice at the beginning of the match. So there's 1 of 3 options, and this one was a 2, and so that means that the robot has to end up in this rectangle right here. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. So it's got 30 seconds of autonomous. So it basically took the reading right at the beginning. And now it's just turning the base, because ultimately in future matches, they want to be able to start picking up these cones right here autonomously.
Yeah.
So what would they do with those cones?
So they got to score them on these junctions, so these vertical poles, as well as these black spots in the ground.
Okay.
Those are all called junctions. So basically every 2 feet. And if they can score on those and sort of be the top cone on each one, then they can own that particular one. Plus they get higher points if they're scoring on taller poles.
I'm more concerned about us getting a good run.
So here the robot's under full manual control, and so the robot's just controlling the arm extension and the turret, and then he's going to score put it in a scoring position on that tall pole right there.
They missed.
No, they got it. It's 5 points. They didn't miss.
Oh, I got it.
The cones have a hole in the middle, and so they fall all the way down to the bottom.
Now, is that using suction, or is it just using a net effect?
It is using a compressed Ninja Flex bulb. But when it gets compressed, it spreads. So it's compressing against the inside of the cone, the hole in the top of the cone.
It looks to me like you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, this was the last match of the day, and they've gotten most of their bugs worked out. They have a memory function where it automatically goes back to the last place it successfully picked up, and then it also goes back to the last place it successfully dropped. And so the robot's doing almost all of the work here, and the operator is just doing fine-tuning the final position before picking up and dropping off. So that's why it's going a lot faster. So even the turret is turning, just to the last position.
Go to a different junction.
That last one, they put it, there were actually 2. It was like a special element. There were actually a special element on top of the cone. And that means that nobody else can score in that particular cone.
It fell on the cone.
So they nailed it then.
Huh?
They absolutely nailed that one, didn't they?
They did all right. There's still some speed up to be accomplished, I think.
Yeah.
And they'll get more points if they can, instead of just going back to that same cone, same junction every time, is if they spread it out to different junctions.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there more points if it's a tall pole? Or
Yeah.
is it...
Yeah.
So
the
that's why
tallest
they
pole-
that's what they were doing then, right?
That's
Going
what they
for
were
the most-
doing. But so basically, there's 5 points for the tallest pole, and then 4 for the medium height ones, 3 for these, 2 for the ground junctions, and then 1 for the corners.
So it
Um,
looks like the opposition didn't get any cones on anything. There's cones all over the floor.
Kind of looks like they weren't successful.
Yeah.
They've got one in the far corner here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were having some trouble. Plus, they didn't have a partner. Their partner team had to leave. This was late in the day,
Oh.
and so they just ended up without a partner. So that wasn't so great for them.
Because it looks like 40204010 wouldn't be doing a whole lot by himself either.
That was our partner. So
Yeah.
it was another blue robot, and
He didn't put any on the cones.
I think they did this one right here.
Oh, okay, they got one. Okay.
Yeah.
And then one in front, it looks like.
I think they got one right here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they got 2, and those were both tall poles.
Yeah.
Plus, they also got 3 points for owning those poles. Basically, if you're the top cone on a pole, then you own that pole.
So that's where why you wanted to spread them out is because
That's
of the
why.
owning.
Yeah, exactly. By doing this one, we're not getting any more ownership points on it. But that was the code they had at the time that was just able to go between the two. They actually have a more complicated representation of the entire field in their code.
Mhm.
It's just not. They haven't got to the point of testing and tuning it, but they should be able to score entire patterns. So whatever is within reach of the arm, they should be able to score a bunch of poles around it, and then they could either move to this cone stack or there's another cone stack on the other side.
Mhm. Cool.
That got knocked
So
over.
for this early in the season, this is about as good as my team has ever done, because we don't do driver practice terribly well. We're always working on the robot. And, so
Now, let's say you drove over to that other halfway point in the one that nobody went to. There's no cone over there.
the other halfway point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So keep going, go
This
up.
way?
No, up.
This way.
Yeah, that place right there.
Yeah.
Why is there no cone there?
Well, there's a cone on this one.
Yeah, but I
it's-
mean, on this one, they kept feeding cones. Why didn't they feed cones on that one? Why?
this is the only location you're allowed to feed cones.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a little corner. There's a little triangle right in the middle
fell
of
on the
this
cone.
wall. And there's another one for the other alliance way over here. And those are the only place that a human player is allowed to introduce new cones into the field. And you'll see over here, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a stack of 5 cones.
Oh, they got knocked
that our
over.
partner team knocked over.
Gotcha.
All right. And so at that point, it becomes very difficult to retrieve them. So that's why they moved over to this side of the field.
I got you.
And if you knock over, if we were to knock over this stack, which belonged to the opposing alliance, we'd get a minor penalty. We get a penalty for each cone that we knocked over.
Yeah.
So you got to be very careful with that. You cannot mess with your opponent's cones.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool.
So being
This
the
is-
top cone, so say you waited to the end to put a cone anywhere, and you put the top cone on your opponent's stacks. Would you own all those stacks then?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
You would own their stack. They would still get points for the individual the cones that they stacked on that pole. But you would get the ownership points. And there's also so what I pointed out is that you really can't see it here, but there's an extra ring called the beacon that our human player placed on top of our cone, so that we picked up the cone and the beacon at the same time. And that's the topmost one right here. And what that means is if we have a beacon on it, then the opposing alliance can't actually score. At that point, it's fixed. Nobody else can steal that particular alliance.
Oh, okay.
So how many beacon cones do you have?
There's a total of 40 cones altogether. Oh wait, so there's only a single beacon.
Okay.
There's 2 per alliance, so 1 per team. but this year you're only allowed to score one. Each robot is only allowed to score one. So you would have to rely your partner team would have to be able to score their own beacon.
Mm.
So when you're putting the cones on the stake there on
Mhm.
the pole, that's not autonomous? That's done with controller?
So
Operator?
some teams are doing it in autonomous as well. So you get that 30 seconds at the beginning. So it's our goal to be able to score that cone stack during autonomous, but we weren't at that point yet. But some teams are actually doing that already. But
So when you're stacking
everything
the
you
cone,
saw here was under teleop. Everything you saw on this particular cone or this particular pole was teleop
right?
already.
But you're saying that,
But it had
say,
behaviors associated.
yeah, you're saying between 20 and 80%, the robot knows how to move by itself. It's only it's only the final adjustment that the
Yeah.
person is doing.
Exactly. And even that we want to replace with, better sensors to detect exactly what the distance to the pole is and centering on it. So that's why I was asking the question about the distance sensors. We've got two different challenges. One is to detect when we're centered on a pole, and the other is the distance to a pole. And using, distance sensors and perhaps overlapping distance sensors, we can probably we can probably have a pretty good sense of that without even worrying about vision based detection. But our other strategy going forward will be vision based detection of those yellow poles.
Now the cones have a hole obviously through them,
Right.
so
And that's what we're picking them up.
Yeah. So here's just I mean, I don't know if this is a thought of any value, but you could have a small piece of pipe that went down. So like when you came on it and you put your net, your conforming thing,
Mhm.
it actually has a pipe that points down, okay, through the hole in the cone. And that way, when you went over to the top of the cone, all you would have to sense is that the because the top of that pipe is going to be so much closer than everything that's around it. If you could just
Yeah, we're
see,
looking at a distance sensor placed right around here
yeah,
that points in this direction, sort of,
hmm
as one option. There's another option to have a distance sensor right here on the base of the turret that was pointing straight out that way.
hmm
And
I
we're
guess
looking,
what I was saying is actually have, I don't know if I don't know how to do it, but if you went to the end of your shaft that you could pick them up with right there, yeah.
Mhm.
If you had something that pointed down through the hole in the cone, when
Oh,
you
we do.
okay,
It's actually not pointing through the hole in the cone. It's pointing at the lip of the cone. So there's a sensor built right here that is looking down so that we can detect when we have a cone
yeah,
and we're like close enough to it to grab it.
yeah. But now when you get to
But
the
we
top
don't
of
have
the
one right in the middle because that's where our bulb grabber is. So that would be obscuring, right? Because we basically have to put a bulb down through the neck and expand it in order to grab
yeah,
the cone.
okay, I got you. So how are you expanding that?
There's a servo right there, and
Mhm.
it basically pulls a pin up
Oh, gotcha.
that
Okay,
forces it to.
to
And
expand
it's basically a Ninja Flex bulb
bulb.
that's got slits around it,
Yeah,
so that when you compress it, it forces itself to go out.
yeah, really cool.
They've done some amazing work
Yeah,
with the robot this season. We're not at the top of the leaderboard of capability in the region yet. Hopefully that's something that's in their future, but
yeah.
this is
Doggy,
about as good as they've gotten off to this early this season.
Now I was going to say they are really, really well into this one.
Yeah, they are. They got two more meets, and then they got their culminating tournament, and that will determine whether or not they advance to regionals. And I haven't got anybody to fall into the trap yet, but again, December 10th, we are hosting a tournament for 2 other leagues at Townview, and we'd be happy to entertain any of
Okay.
y'all that would be interested in seeing these robots run and judging how the design work that went into them.
That's December 10th.
December 10th. Yep.
I'm gonna put that
And
in
it
the
is
channel.
not a DPRG meet.
Yeah.
I believe it's the week before.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know if there are plans for the DPRG meet the following week, but my team would probably be interested in presenting,
Yeah.
the details of how they've pulled this off and what the.
I don't think
Thanks
we
for
have
the
any
robots.
monthly presenters lined up. So
Yeah. That's
unless
a good
you want-
idea.
Your team could
Yeah.
claim it. You very easily, Cream.
We'll take it.
Okay, that's December 16.
No. Well, wait a minute.
It would be the 17th, I believe,
Yeah.
because the 10th is also a Saturday.
Yeah.
So not the 3rd, not the 10th, but the 17th.
Yep.
All right, because the 10th is the contest. All right. Yeah, well, could you get them, or could you send a little brief, and then we can get something posted?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Cool. I'll put a placeholder in here anyhow. And do you prefer noon or 1 o'clock to start at?
Whatever works for you guys. I guess the earlier the better, because we also want to have a meet afterwards. Our standard our standard practice time is 2 p.m.
Okay.
But-
We had,
12 o'clock, right, Carl?
let's do noon, Doug, because
Okay.
This would
we
be
had been doing
virtual,
1
I
o'clock
assume.
for New Zealand, but let's do noon. Start at noon on the 17th.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Do you want to make an actual? You want me to go get a room? Well, I'll have to check, but try to get a room.
Yeah, you
You
want to
guys want to do?
In
Do you need
person.
one?
Huh?
Do you need a room?
What do you prefer, Kareem? You're gonna have them.
We could do in person, or we could do remote. Either way.
Well, I mean, if you got a meeting at 2 o'clock, I would.
Remote's probably easier for us.
Okay,
Let's
but,
do it remote. That's easier for us too, probably.
that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, send me an abstract, and we'll get it started.
Okay.
Cool.
By the way, I've volunteered for judging before, and it's a lot of fun, guys. I mean, it's definitely wouldn't be bad at all. And everybody here, even you, Jack, you young man, you
Absolutely.
could easily do this. So, and it's an eye opener because you get to see some pretty stunning work by a bunch of groups of kids, and from people who are, some teams are just like, this is the first time they've ever competed, to people who, are old graybeard competitors like Iron Rain. So, I mean, you get to see a lot of different stuff, and you also get to meet a lot of people, and they feed you lunch, right?
We absolutely
And there's
feed you
lunch.
lunch.
Yeah.
Snacks all day long.
Yeah. So, I mean, we ought to consider, going as a group of as many as we could get. I mean,
That
what
would
are
be
you doing
so
on that?
great.
What are you guys doing on the 10th anyway? Mike, what are you doing?
I'm
you
ready.
You got to come out of that spaceship sometime.
I know. I'll have to make plans to land before then, and
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
It's inspiring though. It's worth it.
Contact Elon, see if he's got
I'm
a
game.
spare rocket.
Where's it at?
It's
It'll-
downtown. I'm assuming it's at your school, right?
Yeah, it's just south of downtown. It's Townview. I'll go ahead and put a map thing in the.
I will say
Yeah.
this: it's easier to get to than you think it's going to be.
It's pretty
Okay,
easy
I
to
mean-
get there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little worried about going downtown and getting lost and never returning. But it was actually pretty easy to go to this because you're on superhighway until the last minute. So it's not too much
You're
of
on
hardship.
35 the whole time until you get to Maple Street,
Yeah.
and then it's right off the highway.
Yeah. And then this thing starts early, so you really, on Saturday there's just not going to be any traffic.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. I went to it was a DISD auction, pretty much, and the schools, it was a lot of woodworking equipment.
Yeah.
Huh.
The schools just beat the heck out of these machines. I mean,
Yeah.
lathes with gnarled off threads on the spindle, and the
Yeah.
spindle wasn't even concentric anymore. Got to the place, and it's like, I don't know, an 8-foot chain link fence with razor wire on the top, and some kid is trying to stop me in the road, from I don't know, I guess he wanted to talk to me or something. It's kind of like, kid, get out of the way, you're going to get run over. I am not stopping. So
Yeah.
didn't give me a real warm, fuzzy feeling about the whole place.
So this would be the monthly meeting?
So this says you can judge, or we just go and be.
Okay, I'll give you a kind of a breakdown. I know Kareem could do this too, but I'll give you a breakdown because I've been there as a judge. Kareem's there as a coach. He has a slightly different perspective. So you meet in a room with all the other judges, okay, and they serve you donuts and coffee. And so while you're in the room, you get a T-shirt. Usually says volunteer on one side or something. And the guy explains the process to you. Okay. And then you break up into groups of 2 usually, and you work with another gentleman, and you sit in a room, and teams come to you. Okay. And they have like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I'm not sure what it is. And you have to ask them questions about their robot. And, you might need a little guidance at first, but it's not too hard. And what you do is you kind of try to see what they've done well, and maybe give them a little pat on the back and some encouragement as they go out. And then you score them crazily. Then, so you do that for all, your 6 or 7 teams that you've got, and there's all these other people doing the same thing, but they're your teams now. So then later on, you go out into the field and you walk the field and ask teams different questions. Usually the teams that you've already judged in the room, you want to find out, well, did you really get an impression? Okay. And you're also looking for unfriendly behavior, like they're laughing at the other team and and kicking the robot. That's badness. So, but usually that's you get another good impression on that. Then you all meet in a room and you rank them for 4 or 5 different categories of stuff. One of them is innovation. One of them is do their notebooks look good? Because they're going to also drop off when you meet them early in the day a notebook, and they have certain criteria that you judge the notebook on. And there's a couple other things that you do, you judge. So then they start trying to rank them. This is when they become your teams. And you have to decide, okay, of all my 6 teams, there's 2 teams here that I really think are good. And then you have to fight for those 2 teams to get them to the top of the ranking. Okay, now, or as high as you can get them, you could get 6 dud teams, but it hadn't happened to me yet. And that's pretty much it. And somewhere in there, you eat a lunch and have fun. You meet some other interesting people. It's really a good thing. I don't know.
Hopefully when you
Carl.
come out, your tires
And
aren't
now,
slashed if you were
now,
too harsh
Kareem,
on
you can
Chad.
correct me. You can tell me what I missed. But that's kind of what I see for the day.
I think you got it pretty well. So
Yeah.
they've got 5 minutes to do like a Shark Tank presentation, and then the judges have 5 minutes for Q&A. The teams are answering it, and you've got those different categories. Another one is design. There's another one for code, and then there's one for basically how their teamwork was going, and how their engineering process worked. And Yeah, you get to see. Not all of the teams are equal. There's a lot of beginning teams, and there's some the advanced teams are some, they do some pretty amazing things. It's like I said last time, had we had this kind of stuff in high school, these are like kids at the beginning of just amazing careers.
Right.
And they're doing some great work, and it's great to see them, and urge them along, and give them pointers on the things, because they're all still missing things as well, right? As far as I'm concerned, the judging sessions, that experience for the kids, as well as the interaction with the judges, that's the most valuable thing that we do in robotics. The robots themselves are almost parenthetical to that, and yet the robots are it's the organizing goal that they're all focused on. And that, again, they do some pretty amazing robotic technical work and build work and stuff like that as well. I mean, there are things that I learned from these kids as well, so it's great.
And like if you have 6 teams that you're looking at, there'll be 6 different approaches. And that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this group and I'm seeing 8 volunteers.
Carl already begged off. He's got a conflict.
I'm in Chicago that day.
But yeah,
I'm sure John will be
for a
willing
great
to do it.
reason.
But all these other
yeah.
guys, Pat, you got to come down from Canada.
Yeah. Wish we could pay for the airfare.
Is John's not here tonight, is he?
No, John G.
Yeah, John G would love this too, I think.
We'll bring it up again next week. I'm here. We got at least 2 careers so far. 6 more to go.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of community type events and stuff. In the last 2.5 years, we haven't done diddly. So something like this would really be a good way for us to kind of maybe kick fire some of our juices and get some of that done. You hear me, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want you just sitting there, not doing nothing.
I kind of got my hands full here.
You might need a day off. Who knows?
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Just make sure you send out what the information is on when and where.
Yeah, because there is one requirement. You do have to fill out a form to be a judge. It's not a big deal, but you have to do it. Kareem, that might be something that you could.
There is a registration website. I'll send out an email to the list.
Yeah.
With sort of instructions on how to do that.
It's not a big deal, okay, but you do have to do it. And
these days, working with kids is just the usual thing.
Yeah. You got to sign an online waiver, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They'll actually do a background check because we're working with kids, right? But it's a very informal. I mean, it's all online, and they'll actually bug you to pay for it in the process. But this is a requirement that they're putting on us, and and I tell people that you don't have to fall into that.
Yeah, I never
they,
paid.
they have
I've never
they
paid
have the
for it.
resources. They have the resources to fund it.
Mhm.
So
Do
to,
they ask questions like, how many times did you vote for Trump or stuff like that?
No questions at all.
No.
They just need contact information and your
Zero,
willingness.
0 times.
Yeah. So you just have to. Yeah, it's very simple to fill out, and it's not a big deal.
so to let you know, we send you that email. We respond to that email address. Let
Yeah,
you know.
I'll be sure to individually follow up with you if you send it to the Iron Rain Robotics email address that I put in the chat. But I'll also send it out to the DPRG
Okay.
list with.
Yeah, because there's some people
Oh,
that
okay.
aren't here that might be really interested.
Yeah.
Are you an election denier?
Oh, let's not do that. Did Trump make his announcement tonight?
I'm afraid so. During the meeting.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
Let's not go there.
Wow.
Let's not go there.
Yeah.
So what other robot things do we have aside from, political robots?
Those are voting machines, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
Political
that's yeah.
So in the
Something
meantime,
nice
I
to
have
to
something I
write.
can show.
Okay, John.
Since I, in the process
Good
of cleaning
segue.
some of the house, I did find a robot kit I had bought back whenever. In fact, I'll show you the page. Let's see. There we go. Yeah. So I bought it back whenever it was, like about 4 or 5 years back, and so hence it's discontinued. But and right now I'm slowly putting the parts together, but those are the parts. Okay. And here's sort of the stats for it.
Go slow. Let's see. How big are the wheels?
I'll show you in a moment more in
Okay.
detail.
It looks like they're good
It's
125 millimeter wheels.
Yeah, I'll show you the real thing, but here's the page of specs. So in theory, it could carry up to 5 pounds.
The size of a horse apple.
It has 4 gear motors. Okay. Hopefully they're powerful enough to get up the hill. So that's the one thing I wonder about. But there's the specs, and there actually is diameter there. Okay. So that's, let's see, that page.
Can you click on it, John? Go back to your thing. Can you click on that PDF there?
No, because they don't have that anymore.
Oh, the PDF link is broken?
Yeah. Well, it's been discontinued. So you can't buy this anymore.
No, I meant they had it.
But that's how it looks when it runs.
So you're gonna build it for next year?
I'll show it I have it. So Key is building it. But I can give you.
Oh, it didn't hit the tree. What kind of robot is that?
Probably remote control, but anyway.
That looks like a very doable base, John.
Yeah.
I would say the only real treasure I have it does
there's
have
a
port to go
size of a
uphill.
bench.
I've got a question for people. I'm kind of curious.
Oh.
I've always thought less motors is better.
So here's how it really looks.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's
pretty nice.
the motor.
Gosh, those are nice size motors.
Mhm.
Flip
So
it up
there's just
again,
my rear.
John.
Do they have encoders?
It could be encoded. You can add on. They have a sim in the back. So that's
Okay.
where I made to change out the motor themselves because that
Those are
looks like that's
37.5 millimeter motors.
right. They're pretty
That's
standard motors.
pretty big.
But the key is the the base.
Mhm.
So
Hey, John, is it
Oh, we'll
aluminum
see.
or steel?
it's pretty heavy. So I would
Oh,
say
it might be steel.
it's probably steel.
You got a magnet? Can you just check it real quick?
I don't have magnet on me.
Or can you tell if it's aluminum?
I would say I think it's more steel than aluminum, though. It's my
Okay.
guess. Offhand. So yes. So tonight, that's why I was putting together the part.
Okay, back to my question. Has anybody used 4 motors on like that? That's on like what John said, and so they had to have 4 PID loops on them, or they could, I guess, they could tie 2 together and have one of them slipping. They
I
wouldn't be
think
the same
that's
speed.
what John did on the
That's
one
right.
he had on Saturday.
So I'm
Carl's
just
platform had 4 motors, didn't it?
who?
Carl? His Mechana wheel?
No. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So, Carl, how hard is it to have 4 PIDs tuned up?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I zoned out for a moment. I didn't find it difficult at all. I mean, I used the same gain for all 4 on the Mecanum platform that I have, and that seemed close enough from a control loop point of view.
Okay.
I mean, you can see if you look closely at the speed, like the acceleration profile, that 1 or 2 wheels might respond a little bit faster than the others, but I didn't bother to try and zero that out and make them identical. And
Well, the Thumper has, depending on which model you buy, either 4 or 6 motors too. And I've often wondered, that sounds like it would be hell, to get it all right.
I didn't have any. That was easy. I thought.
Anderson solves that by chaining them all together.
Yeah, so that's the way Scott does it too. So he has 2 motors. Everything's 2 motors.
Yeah.
And if you could find the right tank model that had the right spacing for the base, usually they run on 1 motor with the transmission that splits, or I don't know what, I guess it's a transmission. What is it? Well, anyway, it feeds both sides.
Oh, a
But
differential.
it's only 1 motor. No, they're not. They're not differential. They're no. It's still 2 motors. They're just stuck next to each other. Never mind. They just have them centrally located in the robot.
I figured that whether you tie them together mechanically to the same motor with gears and chains, or whether you have separate ones, at the end of the day, if you're using control loops to take out the error, then who cares if you got a good position reference, and who cares if one wheel's a little bigger than the other, if one motor's a little faster than the other.
Well, I'm sure you've all seen that PID demonstration where the guy is using a square wheel and it's going the right speed and everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Just let the loop take it out.
Yeah.
That's my theory. But then again, I build duct tape and baling wire kinds of robots. So take that advice for what it's worth.
I have the 4-wheel Thumper robot, and I use two motors with encoders and 2 motors without encoders.
So you have 2 following. Yeah.
Yep.
Do they slip a lot?
They do, but guess what? They also do in the grass anyway. You know what I mean? If you were running your robot, you would still have a wheel, even if it had an encoder. It would still be slipping in the grass somewhere. So,
yeah, but it would be slipping at the same speed, Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So it runs okay, is what you're telling us.
It runs. I think it runs perfectly good for what it was doing in the backyard over the grass and bumps and whatever else. And I put like 2 encoders on the back wheels, I think, and the front wheels are just driven with motors, no encoders.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, my motors are driven in parallel off a dual H bridge. So one side drives the front and back on the right, one side drives the front and back on the left, with using the encoder feedback to drive both those motors on each side.
Well, John's robot he had on the back porch Saturday was wired like that, wasn't it, John?
Yes. You're talking about this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, basically it's a tank with two wheels, left, right. And I was thinking one of this other one doing the same way.
My guys almost always prefer to fix it in software. So more PID loops, the better, unless they're mechanically ganged, you know.
Yeah, I think next
Okay.
year's platform, I'm gonna use the motors off the differential platform and make it 4-wheel drive, because those motors don't draw as much current as the 4-wheel drive platform that I made earlier.
No, I've been looking at Polo motors because they're going to have their Black Friday sale coming up here pretty soon.
I looked at they have a bunch that are just on special. Most of them are 6-volt. They're discontinued. They don't have the cap over the encoder.
Yeah.
The replacements will have that.
Are they 37 millimeter ones? Or are they 25 or 20s?
I think there was a mix. I think there were some, like 25s and some 37s or.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Polulu. Just look at this.
Yeah, because they also have some on ration. Those will probably not go on sale. But I did notice that they started carrying 24-volt motors too. I don't remember that in the past. Maybe it's because I wasn't looking for them, but they now have on the 37.5 millimeter ones. They actually have 24-volt motors. You can buy two still, but they're called rationed and in use, or ration and active. I think ration and active. So my concern is I suspect that they won't go on sale, but we'll find out. Now that's where I usually buy all my motors, is on Black Friday.
Yeah, that's right by those RoboClaws, because you can get so much off one. They're outrageously expensive otherwise.
Yeah. Where do they just call Robo? You go to roboclaw.com. Where do you buy them?
Actually, Polulu used to have a sale on them. They'd have at least $50 off. I think it was more like $100 one time.
Yeah.
But that may have been after RoboClaw had a price increase or something.
Yeah. I want to say that I know they have some high current motor drivers, but I thought they were all their own design.
RoboClaw's design?
No, theirs. They have a line of intelligent motor controllers and stuff.
Oh, Polulu does, you're saying?
Yeah. Kareem, what about Rev? Has Rev got any things that you would say these are really cool?
They got all sorts of cool stuff, but and so does GoBuilda.
Just a matter of money.
It's all a bit pricier than the club is normally wanting to go for. I think the motors are pretty are all very good. With the built-in encoders, they're larger than what most of the club members use. They're like the 550s.
Yeah.
But you get plenty of power with that, and it's actually more appropriate for something like the outdoor challenge. You probably want a bigger platform. Otherwise, you're just fighting the bumpiness of the grass and the divots.
But is when we say, so the Pololu 37.5 24-volt motors cost about $55, I think. What would theirs cost?
Is it around 30?
Less. About so they have a couple of different ones. The ones that I would go for are the more expensive ones. They're called the ultra planetaries, and those are really cool because they have a state. They have up to 3 stages of 3, 4, or 5-to-1 planetary gears that you can stack.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can design your gear ratio all the way between basically 1-to-1 to 125-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's all before you take it into the rest of your transmission, whether you're using chain or belts or whatever.
Yeah.
The amount of flexibility that gives you is incredible. And they have rock solid encoders on them, quadrature encoders. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the price on those is about, I should actually look that up to be sure, because they're the pricier ones, but they're probably going to be about $50 as well. They're going to have more power than the ones that you were just mentioning, but they are 12 volts, so they'll draw a lot of current.
Yeah. Well, what I guess I was asking though, Cream, so that's some $50 for the motor, and how much for the planetary?
Including the gearbox.
Oh, okay. Including
Yeah,
the gearbox.
including
the encoder, right?
So and the encoder, yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
That's
Let
reasonable.
me double check on the price.
I thought
I may be misremembering, but
I thought it was less than that, but I may have been looking at something.
It might have been 45. It's remarkably affordable for the kind of flexibility you get.
Now, has it got some funky shaft when you get on that? Or
It does have a funky shaft, so
Hex?
it's a hex, it's a 5-millimeter hex, but they also have a bolt on. Yeah, they're $45. So I can actually show that.
And I'm assuming that's comparable to what Go Builda offers.
Can you put the link in the chat too? So
yeah, sure.
So you just tell them what you want in your stack.
Well, I mean, you build the stack yourself, right? So there's these 3 stages. So it comes by default with a 3, a 4, and a 5-to-1, right? And you can buy the individual stages, and they're not that expensive either. They're less than $10 each.
Okay.
So if you want to go with a 5-5-5, you would have to buy 2 more of those 5 stages.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just throw these bolts right through them, right? And so that hole in the middle right there is for a 5-millimeter hex shaft. This shaft right here, that's their standard shaft. And the way it's held in is there's also there's a set screw right in the side of this hub here. But this hub is entirely ball bearing mounted. And instead of using the shaft, so a lot of teams will use the shaft, but I almost always recommend my teams to bolt directly to this pattern, because this entire thing moves, right? This end stage. And so there's I think it's a 16-millimeter bolt pattern. There's one of the 6 missing because that's where the set screw goes for the shaft. But I mean, it is pretty strong against axial loads. And you have to be careful in torquing these, right? You over tighten them, then it'll crank down on them and kind of mess through it. The earlier versions of them had some issues, but they've worked through all of that, and I found these to be rock solid. The motor itself is just a standard 550, which is all over the RC world for the larger trucks. And then it's got an encoder on it that I think it's native 3.3 volts. I don't think this one is 5-volt compatible.
Well, let me ask you this, Kareem, is this is brushed or are they brushless?
This is regular brushed. Yeah, you're not going to get brushless for this price.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I didn't.
But you could put a brushless motor on here. So they also have brushless, right? So they have, in fact,
before you change that bolt pattern on the front their sprockets will bolt to that, right?
Yes, they will. Yeah, they have good they have sprockets. They have uh, pulleys.
Cog,
So
like for belts.
yeah, for timing belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a larger one. This is the one that you'll see used on the FRC robots on the much larger fields.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice the price is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
It's $48. The trick is that the motor controller is over here. That's
Yeah.
$90,
Yeah.
right? So there's a jump in price, but they also have this. So this is the Neo is a 550 quote size, if you like.
Yeah.
It's got considerably more power, and you'll still need one of these brushless controllers.
Do you have to
be
use
able
their
to
brushless
power it.
controller?
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Okay.
But you know they do have a good solid brushless controller. This one actually connects over CAN bus. I was hoping that they would have something that would go over I2C because that's what most of our stuff is based on. But this one is CAN bus. But they've got an alternate mode where you can just feed it a PWM signal and it'll like ramp up speed accordingly. So it has an internal PID controller inside there that you can configure. Particularly, you can't really do a lot of configuration unless you have CAN bus support. But you can pre-program certain values with it for it on your PC, and then you can just use it with a PWM to indicate sort of the speed scale you want. But these are amazing motors right here. I mean, the amount of power I've got these on one of my other robots. These are not legal for FTC.
Can you put them on can you use, since they're both 550s, can you plug into that planetary gears?
Yes, this will with the right pinion gear, it is compatible with the ultra planetary cartridges.
Yeah.
The trick there being that because this motor has more power, you can't really do the 555. They've got a table that shows you the valid gear ratios that are available. Also, these go a lot faster too.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up having to like probably step down your speed later on in the transmission beyond the gearbox, because the gearbox, this will shatter the gearbox if you try to do it at the higher reduction ratios.
Yeah, it sounds like the brush motor still would be the smartest way to go. For
It's
20
going to
bucks.
last forever and super tough. I mean, super powerful. It's amazing.
You mean the brush motor?
No, the brushless.
Oh yeah.
The brushed motors are the sort of the default way to go, right? They're
Yeah.
easier. They'll work with your standard H bridges, and they'll still last longer than we typically use them for.
Yeah.
Right. So I would probably recommend sticking with the brushed motors unless you have a real need. Plus, these also don't have encoders on them, so you sort of have feedback going back to the motor controller. But
just the motor code
but the
sense.
motor controller also has an extra input for true encoder inputs. And Rev has I wonder if they have it here. Oh, here's the Big Brother version of the ultraplanetary for the big motor.
Yeah.
Right. So they've got that now too, and that's considerably more expensive.
Yeah.
But they have that capabilities, and then they've got the shaft encoder. A little bit on the pricier side, but we use these also. And so these would be on the final output stage. And they've got adapters for different kinds of shafts that you might put through it. But the benefit of this, of course, is that this is after all of the slop in the gear train. If you throw this on the final shaft that's being driven, and this has got a really absurdly high number of ticks per angular rotation. I don't remember exactly what it is, so it's a bit on the pricey side, but this also has a port that plugs directly back into that brushless motor controller if you want really good brushless control. Because otherwise it's just sensing the coils that are going past, and it's not high precision. And it doesn't have the abilities like to hold position that you would get when you add the through bore encoder.
Cool. Gonna have to look at their line when I haven't looked at it in a while, because there was a period of time there where the line wasn't very complete.
Yeah, no,
It
it's
is.
pretty complete now. The problem that we've been having is availability.
Yeah.
Like this is the first time I've seen the through-bore encoder actually available
Mhm.
in probably 6 months.
Whoa.
So it looks like they must have just got a shipment.
Mhm. Okay.
You can do you can show up there and just buy the products, right? You don't have to get them shipped to you.
They used to allow that. I think the answer is no. You can't. They don't have like a storefront,
Right.
but they are in Carrollton, and you can order online, and you can ask for local fulfillment, where you can then go just pick up your order. And
Yeah.
I believe that they've resumed that practice.
Neat. Now, got to find a cheap set. I've asked Scott about his tires, and he told me who made them. But I think my eyes rolled back in the head when he told me how much they cost. And so I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him again. But those are really nice tires.
Hey, Surplus Center, I think my solid plastic wheels,
Yeah.
I think they were $295 each.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
$295. That's pretty pricey.
Yeah, no, $2.95.
Yeah.
Yep.
You should just go with 4 of them next time.
Yeah, I did a 4-wheel drive platform earlier in the year, but the motors that I used, they're electric seat motors, and they were they're powerful, but I didn't need them to be that powerful, and they would draw all kinds of current, and I don't even know if a battery that I wanted to use would last for a run. It was, I think they can draw 25 amps each, but they're have to move around possibly a 300-pound person in an automotive seat, so but yeah, they're
Hefty.
these motors, and I could put an encoder. This the motor shaft is available in the back, and I made a little thing that just pushes onto the 2 posts in the back here, so I could stick my encoder there.
Yeah.
So they're not bad. They're like I said, very powerful, but they are seat motors and they draw a lot of current. So I wanted to use the motors on the 2-wheel drive platform on the 4-wheel drive, move those over to make it a 4-wheel drive platform.
I think you would have even been better off, Ray, if you'd have put 2 on the back and just let them be free axle. You know what I mean? Still have a two-wheel drive, but
yeah, the
I
caster
think
did get stuck in one of Steve's ruts that I could have lost a foot in. It was pretty wide.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
yeah, it probably didn't help on the horse apples, that little caster in the back,
Yeah, probably.
So
well, okay, guys, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, 10:07, 10:09.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know how Carl feels about it, but we've been at it for 2.5 hours. Is that right?
Yep. I'm good to go. I got a 7:30 call with India, so I gotta go. But if you guys,
No, I'm going to have to leave here.
Night, guys.
So,
if we're talked out, we're talked out. Have a great night,
Okay.
guys. See you next
good meeting. Good meeting.
I'll see you.